About 3 weeks ago, a reporter asked Nigel Farage a question. It was a very straightforward one. It was about the £5 million he received from crypto billionaire and didn't declare. And Farage, the man who once presented himself as the only politician in Britain brave enough to say what everyone else was thinking, turned around and walked away.
Because it's not political, it's purely personal, and within the rules, which I read carefully and had lawyers look over, it wasn't needed. Anyway, We've won an election. Very good.
Thank you for your time.
The Parliamentary Standards Watchdog had opened a formal investigation. The Prime Minister was asking at PMQs why the money had been kept secret. Richard Tice was deployed on the media rounds to field questions his boss wasn't prepared to answer.
And I know you're irritated by the many questions that are being asked about Nigel Farage's £5 million gift.
Are there any other undeclared gifts of millions of pounds that Mr Farage might not have written down for the authorities?
I look after my own finances, and Nigel looks after his. He knows he's complied with the rules.
And Farage himself was nowhere to be seen. Then Henry Nowak happened, and suddenly Nigel Farage just couldn't stay off the airwaves. Emergency address to the nation, follow-up video to explain his emergency address to the nation, PMQ's question, and now a GB News interview in which he spent 11 minutes explaining why he was right about everything and everybody else was wrong. The questions about £5 million from a Thai-based crypto billionaire and about the parliamentary investigation and about why he didn't declare it, all of those didn't come up. Not once. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Now, I want to be clear about something before we get into the interview. This is not an argument that the Henry Nowak case doesn't matter or that the police failure wasn't real. We've covered all of that on the channel and there are videos that you can go watch if you want to know more about that. What this is a look at who benefits from the conversation staying exactly where it is right now. And the answer to that question has a parliamentary standards investigation hanging over him. So, without any further delay, let's dive right in.
Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. Why didn't you condemn the violence when you had a chance at Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday?
Because I warned there'd be even more violence unless we took some action. Isn't it marvellous? 600 MPs all come together to say, let's unite. Let's unite. Let's condemn the far-right thugs. Let's condemn them. But let's do nothing.
600 MPs voted to condemn far-right violence, and Farage's characterisation of that is doing nothing. So this is what nothing, according to Farage, looks like. An IOPC investigation ongoing. The Home Secretary made a full statement in the Commons. The Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition met the family. So these aren't nothing. But Farage needs them to be nothing because politicians finally responding is a much less useful story for him than wall of silence broken by brave Nigel.
So, of course, I condemn all violence. I always have. But what they don't want to listen to in the Commons is that if you don't get rid of the perception, reality, both, of two-tier policing, and you finish up with lots and lots of angry, young, white, working-class men.
Was that fueled by your response?
Oh,
it was that. Well, that's what your critics will say.
Of course they will, because they want to avoid the issue.
He always condemns violence, except when he was standing up to ask his questions at PMQs, and chose not to. If only all those other MPs might have given him a bit of a hint and maybe asked him to do so.
The anger that you saw spilling out in Southampton last night, and which is in danger.
Condemn the violence.
Which is in danger of getting considerably worse. Because if the public lose trust.
Condemn it.
If the public lose trust in being treated fairly by the police, can he take some action, end this divisive practice of two-tier policing, and make sure that all British citizens are treated the same?
Yeah. The political editor, Christopher Hope, known as Chopper, puts this to him directly. He responds by bringing up Sadiq Khan and George Floyd. This, which at this point it must be about the fourth or fifth time he's used that comparison as an escape route for a question he doesn't want to answer.
But there was a siren call to the violence.
So when George Floyd happened, we had Sadiq Khan and many others saying, yes, it's right to express fury and rage.
But here's the thing about rage. Farage has always had a view on it, and then Henry Nowak happened and his position changed.
I would say his mood last week up at Turnberry, one of quiet anger. Quiet anger is good, because you can turn quiet anger into a positive as opposed to rage, which never leads to anything good. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage.
And now, the position didn't change because his thinking evolved, it purely changed because the politics required it. And then we have this.
In 2024, whilst Priti Patel was a Conservative Home Secretary, there was published the Hampshire and Isle of Wight race report. And through that, a means of literally indoctrinating every police officer.
The document he's been waving around for the past week is proof that left-wing woke conspiracy targeting white people, the document his entire argument rests on, was produced under a Conservative Home Secretary, his own political allies, the people he spent years working alongside, whose government he spent years supporting. Priti Patel commissioned the framework, not Keir Starmer, not the woke establishment wokerati. It was Priti Patel. And he admits it, he says it himself, slides right past it and keeps going as if he hasn't just pulled the foundation out from his own argument. The audience on GB News will either don't notice or they probably don't care. Then we have the family question, and Chopper reads Mark Novak's words directly.
You're ignoring the view of the father, Mark Novak, and he was pretty clear. He didn't want this to become a divisive issue. He didn't want this to be an issue for any kind of drama, any kind of division. He said, we want to see Henry's heartbreaking story to make the change for the better. We don't want his death to...
the change for the better.
But he goes on, we don't want his death to be used to create further division, hatred or tension. We want his story to make our streets safer for everyone. That's not what you're helping happen.
There will be further division.
Now, Mark Novak stood outside Southampton Crown Court and said on the record that he does not want his son's death used to create division, hatred or tension. Chopper reads those exact words back to Farage and asks whether he's been helping that happen. And Farage talks about being a worried father.
Everything he doesn't want to happen will happen when it changes things. I don't know a single person... Do you know what, Chris? I don't know a single person who hasn't lost a child, whether it's through illness or murder or a drowning accident or whatever. I don't know a single parent who's been through those tragedies who would not like to see something done to stop it happening to others.
I mean, it's not an answer. It's a replacement for one. Somewhere between the question and the response, the Novak family's explicit wishes got quietly swapped out for something a bit more comfortable. And he does it very smoothly. It sounds like almost like an answer, but if you're not paying attention. But pay attention, because then comes this.
The Prime Minister is meeting them today. Have you met with them? Have you reached out to them?
No, I mean, the sister reposted some of generic stuff, and the mother, we are going to meet. I don't know when, but we have agreed to meet.
No. His answer's no. As I said before, the Prime Minister met the family, the leader of the opposition's met the family. Farage has agreed to meet them at some unspecified future point. Yeah, he doesn't really know when, while continue to making their son the centrepiece of the national political argument they specifically asked politicians not to have. He hasn't met them, he hasn't reached out, but he has done an emergency address and a follow-up address to explain his emergency address, a PMQ's question and a GB News interview. The family are not a priority. The airtime is.
Cold rage means that you're boiling inside about it, but you're not in any way. And you've known me long enough.
He can't finish that sentence. Cold rage means that you're boiling inside, but you're not in any way. What? He doesn't say. Because completing that sentence honestly would require him to acknowledge the gap between the language he used and what happened on the streets of Southampton. The sentence stops because the argument stops.
Cold rage means that you're boiling inside about it, but you're not in any way. And you've known me long enough. Yeah. I've never, in 35 years of being in politics, advocated people going outside the law. Not once.
35 years in politics, and he's never advocated for going outside the law. I mean, that's true, technically. He doesn't have to. He just has to describe white lives as officially worth less than black lives, called for cold rage, watch the protest start, and then tell everyone he wants to dampen things down.
If this goes on through the summer, with more riots and more bad behaviour, it's not me inciting it, I want it stopped.
But will you call it out? the
I will
violence.
always call it out.
And now he says he wants it stopped. The man who called for cold rage, who built a national argument about white victimhood on an anonymous email, who named a grieving family's son as Exhibit A of his pre-existing political agenda and hasn't even managed to meet them yet. And now he wants it stopped. At the end of this interview, Chopper reads out the Hampshire Police own statement about the training programme Farage has spent the last week calling as proof of international anti-white prejudice. It covers workplace bullying, ethical principles, harassment. It has been recognised nationally as the best practice. Hampshire Police deny all allegations of two-tier policing. Farage doesn't respond. The interview just ends. So here's where we are. Farage has a parliamentary standards investigation running, and he has 5 million undeclared gift from crypto billionaire living in Thailand. He has a Makerfield by-election candidate with a deleted social media and fascist Facebook connections. He has questions he won't answer and reporters he walks away from. And for the past week, he's been the most visible politician in Britain, doing interview after interview, appearing on P&Qs, delivering emergency addresses, all on a story where the questions are policing and so-called DEI and two-tier Britain. I mean, come on, we don't even have DEI in Britain. Questions that he's already got answers for. Questions that don't touch his finances or his donors or his candidate vetting failures or the parliamentary investigation with his name on it. The man who claims to be the only politician honest enough to say what everyone else is thinking has spent the last week making sure that nobody's thinking about the right things. The £5 million question still remains. It was still there this morning. It'll still be there when this story moves on. If you want more of this kind of breakdown, obviously make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, and if you can afford it, the memberships are open. Farage told GB News he's never in 35 years advocated for going outside the law. And he's right, he doesn't need to. He just plants the seed and then capitalises on the noise.